How are you guys, man? It's great to see you.
We're good. It's very exciting times now for Space Yacht. I think since last we spoke, I don't think we had a record label when we first chatted.
Yeah, no, I think maybe you were talking about something that you wanted to do eventually, but yeah.
No, so I was just thinking about when we were on the show the first time, there's a lot of thoughts that now have kind of turned into realities. So the label is definitely one of those things. I'd say the streaming that we're doing totally was something we had talked about, but never really made any moves on. And obviously COVID kind of expedited all of that. So those two things are symbiotic with one another because we use the Twitch live stream as a way to source and do live A&R that then we end up signing. So it's like, we'll hear hundreds of records over the course of a month. And through that, we're cherry picking the best stuff and then putting them out on the label. So it's really cool that the kind of two things, we didn't think they were going to be related. We thought we would stream and be kind of streamers and talk and have fun and listen to music, but it wasn't until a couple months into the process we were like, wait, we're getting all this great music, like we should just sign it and put it out.
So which came first? Did the label exist already when you started streaming?
It was in tandem. It's funny because like people had been talking about the label, various kind of like industry peers were like, hey, elbow, when are you guys going to do a label? And for the longest time, we're just like, you realize like, that's a very different skill set. Yeah, you got the taste, the curation, which of course is a through line and still to this day what we, I think, excel at, and especially discovering new artists. But it always felt like, okay, we have to pursue this and that. You have to work the politics. But all of a sudden, I think, if I remember, I think it started kind of hand in hand because there was this kind of visceral reaction of like, holy crap, there's a lot of stuff that we gave an opportunity to ourselves to hear and to hear on demand and live, and that's kind of fun. On the one front, it's like, okay, we have this kind of pandemic-induced program, which was, Twitch streaming, showcasing what we do on like a booking side. But it really quickly became like, wow, we just have a bookmarking folder of 20 tracks that are great. And we never would have heard of these artists. You could arguably say a lot of these are bedroom producers that weren't really kind of at this point where we can put them on shows quite yet. Certainly not a headlining position, right? Opening, if anything. But a lot of these artists were like, this is really great. And I feel like I would have the excitement, the energy, the vision in terms of putting it out and giving it a shot and maybe developing that artist to the point where they can have their first IRL opening, supporting kind of gig before it's off to the races, I guess. And that was I think our feeling at the time was it's just so much good stuff and a lot of stuff that we wanted to give a chance to.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it works really well for what you guys do specifically as Space Yacht too. I was just listening back to the first podcast we did, and we spent a bunch of time in different aspects talking about the idea of community, and that was maybe something that set Space Yacht apart from other people, is that, at the end of the day, like, yes, it's a great party and great taste and all that. But to me, what was always fun about any time I was there was the fact that it was a hang, and you could tell it was a hang, not just for the people who were coming every week, but also for the artists who kind of was like this little waypoint everybody could stop off at. And Twitch, that's exactly what Twitch is, right? Like the chat, you establish this relationship. Like I did a little 6-month stint on Twitch and I was doing some demo feedback and all that. And it's kind of the same as you guys. It became the most fun and the most interesting part of everything I was doing on Twitch very quickly because, you get not only all this amazing music from people you wouldn't have otherwise heard, but, it's the same people showing up every week and it's resubmitting, that somebody sends in a demo, then the next week they work on it and send it back and you talk about it. And it became such a cool little community for me. It was kind of the most unexpected fun part of doing anything on Twitch. And for you guys, I feel like you've always kind of had that in your events and just everything you do to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, one of the coolest things is that crossover from Twitch to IRL for us, because when we were doing Twitch in the beginning, nothing was open, and then once it got opened, we were back in the club, and then people were saying, "Hey, dude, like I submitted this week on Tune Reactor. I'm so and so DJ name, you know,"
Right.
and that now is happening 10 or 15 times a show, where we always talk about like building community. It's like now we actually have a place for them to go, you know, like in real life if they want to. And then it's also very global. You know how Twitch is. It's like, you know, drop your city in the chat, and it's like, I'm here in, you know, some random country. So so that's been the interesting thing in terms of when we talk about community, because I think it's easy to talk about community online without really having an understanding of who those people are outside of the people who always like your posts.
Yeah.
But for us, we actually get the like, oh, what's up? Handshake. Like, you're a real person. I'm a real person, you know, type stuff, which has been
it's
really
it's so
cool.
key. And it's cool to see and to have a part in those journeys too. I think like I was looking through some of the records you guys have put out over the last couple of years, and a bunch of, you know, obviously great records and great names. A few I recognized, like, there's one you guys did a record with Quaxon, who is Quaxon like used to be in my demo streams all the time.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, great. He's fantastic. And now off doing shit with Rez and, you know, like doing cool stuff. But it's so cool to, you know, kind of like you said, I guess it's like, yeah, that URL to IRL connection makes it feel much more meaningful than if it was just like, oh yeah, like I talked to this guy on Twitter a couple times and now he put out a cool record. Like it feels so much more meaningful when it's someone you've actually, you know, hung out with for a few hours and talked to and bullshitted with. There's something to that, man.
Totally. No, I'd also like to be able to be there and be a mentor for them, because, you know, for those that don't know Space Yacht, we started as an event. But this stream that we're talking about, it's live demo feedback. So like when people submit their stuff, we're saying, look, like we're trying to give you notes to make this better if it needs it. Sometimes we hear something great and we're like, this is awesome. We don't have any notes. But other times it's that like really trying. And that's the feedback we get when I meet those people. They're just like, thank you for like helping me get my stuff better. And it's not like that technical. It's more like me and Henry's taste in terms of like what we think and how it sounds. It's not as nitty gritty as some of the other people who do that stuff. So the community, it's not just like one and done. It's very much you make connections with these people on a deep level just by giving them notes, you know, which is really cool. And then the coolest stuff, I mean, Henry alluded to it before, is the development of these artists. So I think a great example of this is like Dem 2. They're a dope duo out of the Bay. We met them through the Twitch show. They submitted music. We signed them to the label. And then Henry and I got addicted to, first of all, they're the nicest dudes. So we kind of just got addicted to these dudes. We're like, let's just put them on everywhere we can. So they did their first San Francisco headline with us. It was Space Yacht Presents Dem 2 and Friends. They've been on a ton of our stuff in LA. So like, that's a great example. And there's actually a lot of these artists like that, where it's when we say like mentor and become a platform and develop, it's really just plugging them into the stuff that we do, because we do over 100 shows a year, you know, mainly on the West Coast, but around the country. So we can immediately take an artist and plug them right into the live show, and we can plug them right into the label. In some cases, we've done merch collabs. We had this one track called Gin Tonic and Techno. We did shirts, you know, so it's like this whole ecosystem that we can take an artist and plug them in without it feeling forced. It's literally like, yo, you guys are dope. Like, so I think like for those listening who don't really know about us, I think that's the way to think of it. And our Twitch show, Tune Reactor, that's how you get me and Henry. Like literally, for those who are like sending demos or how do I get you to listen to music? It's like the Twitch show is where we have our undivided attention. It's actually the only time during the week. It's 4 hours during the week. It's Monday and Thursday for 2 hours each time. The only time where we're like only listening. Yeah. And so anyone listening who's trying to kind of get involved with our world, it's like, come submit your music, get in the chat. And by the way, shout out to Quaxon, who still comes to our shows and still submits music. Yeah, and so you'll meet people like that who are like also like on the come up, who still watch the show and are in the mix. So that's kind of my little kind of overview of like what it's become, but very unexpectedly. This was not planned out in any way.
Sure, you know? Of course. But it's important to, talk about the whole ecosystem too, because I think in this day and age, I mean, this has been a conversation for a long time, but it only gets more and more relevant of like, what's the point of signing to a record label in the first place, right? And like, what differentiates labels from each other at this point, because, you know, there's so many tools available to people. You just put stuff out on your own. You could sign with an indie label. You could sign with a major label. And all of these come with, you know, various bonuses and compromises and all that. And I think for what you guys do, the fact that you have built this full ecosystem all in this world, like that to me is sort of a strong, not just a strong sell, but it kind of makes sense of like, oh, well, if I sign with these people, like this is the world I'm entering into. You know what I mean? There's this thing when you start off, right, where it's like the highest goal is like, I want to sign to my favorite label, right?
Right.
But I think a lot of artists, when you're starting out, don't necessarily think that through of like what that actually means, you know?
Absolutely.
Like
no,
what,
and it's also, we even try to figure out how to define it to ourselves. Like, what does it mean when you sign with us? Because the realities are, it's like we're different than other labels. Like we're not just like, oh, here's a $10,000 Facebook ads budget, and we're going to do Spotify ads and all these things that you can buy as paid media. We did that in the beginning to test it, and some of it was fine. But at the end of the day, we felt the most valuable stuff were the things that were just organically we could offer. Like, come play a show,
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Come be on Tune Reactor, come be on our podcast, like that type of stuff. And so I think to your point, I think there is, like almost every artist we work with kind of has like kind of understands that that's the MO. It's like, I want to just be a part of Space Yacht and get involved in that. And you see certain people who rise to the top, not just because of the music, but they, you know, they're making their own content. That's stuff that we want to share, you know what I mean? And being awesome and a good person and just coming to the shows, just being a part of it. And that's kind of, you're right. That's what, at least for us, that is what it's about. It's not about like, you know, your advance or, you know, or the kind of things, the check boxes that some of the major labels do. And that's great. And like major labels are able to break records because they have those budgets. But for us, it's like, let's just use our organic reach. You know what I mean? And
and I wasn't even trying to say that one is better than the other. I mean, there's oftentimes I think people are unhappy when they sign to a major label after a while. You know what I mean?
It's tough,
especially in dance. Yeah.
It's tough. The bar is so high for those types of records to recoup. You really need a hit, you know what I mean, in a way that's has pressure to it. Whereas we just kind of sign whatever we want.
Right.
And by the way, we have like we that is the method. It's not signing because it sounds like this or this is big or whatever. It is really because of what we like, because what we found is the things that have popped on our label were not things that I would have told you were popping. Like right now we have this one record off our third Tech My House compilation, which was from last year, by Ian Allen. It's called Bangalore Bounce. And all of a sudden, like in the last week, it got 100,000 streams. It was kind of just dribbling streams, do nothing. Yeah. But it's caught on now on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And that's why it's just doing it. And I never would have said to you that that was going to be the standout track from that compilation. We did an album with Crimson Child. It was actually an early release on the label. It was our only album we've done. And that thing has way over 1 million plays, you know,
right
on that. And that's one that we were just doing for the love of the art because it's such a brilliant piece of work. But people are listening to it. So I think for us, just leading with our taste and the things that we like is the strategy that's going to work for us, because you can never really necessarily know. I mean, of course you can know though. You can hear something be like, "Oh, this is a hit," you know, like of course. But can you make it a hit? That's much harder,
thing, right? Like you can hear lots of songs where it is obvious that this deserves to be a hit, or this is a great song. But you know, there's plenty of great songs that have totally flopped. You know, and it's totally. It's such a hard alchemy of like luck and timing and being smart about marketing. You know, it's a million different things. Making a hit it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah. But we try.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, you know, you're saying like, yeah, we sign to our taste. We sign just the records we like. That's sort of the guiding star. And that makes sense to me because I feel like that's what you guys have mostly always done anyway with your bookings. And, you know, even to like the start of Space Yacht, there's plenty of people who started playing your events when they didn't have a name at all and who have gone on to, you know, have a big name, have a big career, that kind of thing. And I assume the reason you booked them in the first place was the same reason, right? Just like hey, this person seems like they're doing something cool. Let's give it a shot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's where we are when we talk about ecosystem. There's the greater ecosystem that we're a part of, which is all of the other promoters, the Insomniacs of the world, the Coachellas of the world, where like we're the little fish in that universe. But we actually take a lot of pride in booking those people first.
Yeah.
And we see it as a rite of passage where it's like, we want to be able to say that, like Vanessa, for example, like in 2018, she was our most booked artist. We booked her, I think, 7 times that year. And, however many years later, she's a headliner on the main stage, and we take pride in that. We love that because by the way, those people are our friends, and
right.
but it's like it's a lot of people are always like, when are you going to do Space Yacht Festival or this or that? And it's like, we are a club brand by design. We do boat parties too, and we do stages at festivals, but we're a club brand. That's the heart and soul, and that's kind of just where we fit in. Is like we want to be somebody's first play, or we want to be an artist from UK who's coming in from UK who comes once a year to the States. We want to be that play for that person so that they can have that vibe. Like we had Latman on Tuesday for our opening party, and he just like, I was DJing before him and he came on. I was like, "What's up, man? I'm London. I helped throw this party." But he's like, "Mate, this is mental. It's a Tuesday." And
it's a Tuesday.
I was like, and that even though he's a well-established artist, like that type of moment with a big artist is like also another thing that we look forward to. That Henry and I love that. So it's just a cool universe. And for those listening who've never been to Space Yacht, come through. We're in LA every Tuesday. And then we do a lot of shows in San Francisco, Seattle, Vegas. So we're all along the West Coast.
And you guys just started back up in LA, right?
Yeah, fully. We've been going we've been open about a year and a half.
But didn't you take like your holiday break recently?
We took 6 weeks off between, the holidays. And
I mean, even then our off season isn't really an off season. It's just off from Tuesdays.
Right.
But, we're still throwing a ton of winter season bangers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we still had 8 shows in January, even though we were quote unquote off.
Well, and we talked about last time you guys were on, the fact that I think another reason people feel like this connection to what you do is that you guys are there, right? And you're hanging out, you're, this like human identifier of the brand, for lack of a better word. Are you still doing that? Are you guys still showing up to everything?
Yeah. We definitely try to.
Yeah. To most things. For traveling, sometimes one of us will take it, and then the other will take off. But that's a thing that actually like Henry and I kind of realized, because like right when kind of the pandemic was ending, like I actually wasn't going as much.
Sure.
I was my wife was pregnant at the time. I was being like very cautious and this and that. And then kind of once we kind of got out of that phase, it hit me that like actually I need to be there. Henry needs to be there, at least in LA, because it's like people are coming, like we're part of the band. It's a brand, right. But it's like also it's like we're hosting, and we want to be accessible to people, whether you're a producer or just someone who likes to party or whatever. Like we talk about that word community, and we really mean it. It's come find us. We're there. Come find me at the merch table. Come whatever. So that is very much a part of what we do, and something that we feel that we want to continue. Look at Pasquale. He's been doing it 25 plus years. He's still at the festivals. Yeah. You know what I mean? He might not be at every club show, but anything that has emotional resonance with the Insomniac fan base, he is there. And I think, I definitely look up to that and say, look, he's been doing it longer than us. We should definitely show up, Yeah,
no, for sure. I mean, it just makes me think about like, okay, so, you said like you had a kid now, right? And all of us had this enforced break. And I think people's lives shifted as a result and all of that. Like, do you guys think about the life cycle of a scene, the life cycle of a brand like Space Yacht? Because I think like what we do, music is such a youth culture, right? Like it's always the kids saying what's cool. Like that is if there's any rule, that's the rule, is like they are the deciding factor. How do you, other than just showing up, which I think that's going to benefit you guys too, as far as staying connected to what's happening and all that. Like, are you seeing when you go to, the Tuesday night Space Yacht that you've been doing for what, 8-9 years now?
8 years.
8 years. 8 years.
Yeah.
You must have seen like almost generations of kids. Like it must have turned over a couple times at this point, right?
I mean, that would be that. I think that would speak more to like, who is in the nightlife demographic. And I think even there's parties that are, I know for a fact there are parties that are house music still, DJ centric still, and maybe their average attendee is 40 years old. That's fine too. I think nightlife exists in many shapes and forms. Yes, we are definitely, and I think you might be too, is like the subject matter that we talk about, the content that we book at the on our lineups. Like it tends to be about new, fresh music. But at the same time, it's not to discount other formats of nightlife where it's like, hey, I'm going because my peers are here and we happen to listen to this and that. Or, there are nostalgia parties too. But we definitely gravitate towards fun new music and people who are really there to hang and support each other in that sense.
For sure. Yeah. I guess, and I wasn't trying to imply anything different. I guess the question maybe I should have asked is like, over those 8 years for you guys, Space Yacht as a party, as an entity, does it feel the same? Has it evolved? Like, if you look at the like last Tuesday's party versus, 5 years ago or 8 years ago, what are the differences, if any, in terms of how it feels to you? That's funny because just our opening Tuesday, which happened 2 nights ago, there was a couple that I personally knew that I hadn't seen since 2019, and they were there because she literally told me, you booked one of my best friends to open the show, and I of course I had to show up, and it actually felt like we picked up where we had left off. No real change there. And yes, I'm sure there's like, people have different chapters of their life, so they may stop going at some point. But the party, in terms of our perspective, which I think, takes up the primary seat for at least myself and Rami, is like, it still feels insane. It still feels fun, insane in a really fun, cool way. And it feels exciting in the sense that people are still coming here to watch certain performers cut their teeth for the first time, or make the, what we like to say, break through a plateau into the next tier of quote unquote stardom. It's that has definitely not changed. But yeah, there's a rotating cast and crew in terms of the attendees. But
I look at we have this archive of all of the photos from all of our shows. So like we go through a lot of that and try to bring some of that stuff back. And I will say, specific to your question, like there's definitely eras that I see and that me and Henry could probably put our fingers on and have a feeling. Like I definitely think like the early days, both at Golden Box and then at Genesis, which was the upstairs, the second year, those are very specific points in time in terms of the music we were booking. That It's not that we don't book that, but it's like, you had like Keizo and Yultron there, right. You know what I mean? And you had Born Dirty playing his first show in the US there. And you had like A-Track showing, like it was very kind of a little bit more all over the place, actually, I think, in terms of the curation, because we did a lot more of everything. Now I will say, I agree with Henry. The energy of the party is still there. It is still fun. We're having a blast. So that's still a 10 out of 10. But I will say we've honed in on the curation a little bit more in terms of what to expect, where it's like, whereas we might have been doing some, like, let's say we'd have a future bass night, or, like a bass house specific night. We're not doing that much of that anymore. It doesn't mean we don't like that. It's a little bit more driven towards the classic and tech house lane. And then your kind of dubstep, kind of old school rhythm and kind of things in that kind of world. We'll throw a techno show every once in a while. We'll throw a drum and bass show every once in a while. We definitely put that stuff out on the label. But I would say that's the difference when we talk about the eras of Space Yacht and what the difference in 8 years would be. I'd say it's a little more honed in terms of the musical curation.
I mean, it's impressive, man. There's very few. You've got me thinking now about, other long running nights and other established parties that have been going for years. And I mean, the lifespan on that is usually not that long. It's usually, I mean, 8 years that's a very long time, but I'd say it's usually maybe half that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and we've all seen so many parties come and go, and so many, even scenes and trends and sounds, all of that come and go. And I don't even know if I have a specific question, but I'm just trying to hone in on what you guys are doing that have allowed that energy to stick around. Because I think that still having that kind of vital energy, to me, that's almost the most impressive part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about that too, and I think that, you know, there could have been, if you're calling us hosts of the party or curators of the party, there could have been versions of us that got tired of what we were doing or felt that we needed to appease or speak to something specifically decades on decades. Like, I mean, that is, to me, inherently not that exciting. So to allow your taste to evolve, to allow your clientele to come and go as they please, and not to chase one thing too hard to the point where it becomes disingenuous, I think allows us to continue to be genuinely excited about what we do. And we used to throw around this term like ether, and it's kind of a made up term, but it's the attitude that, like, you know, Rami, if you're excited about something and I'm excited about something, it translates to the leadership we give to our team. It translates to the things they say about the marketing or the captions they write even. So, and all those little things, I think, compound, and ultimately the person who's seeing the flyer or the Instagram post for the first time, it's like, I think they feel that a little more when we feel it a little more.
Yeah.
So
that's absolutely.
Yeah. And that's us allowing us to just kind of let go, like, let the trends come and go. It's cool. Whatever, you know, we might do a couple shows that kind of speak to the trends. Fine. But we also do a lot of shows that just speak to what we are. Sorry, guys, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
You want to go to the show or not?
Well, I think you're landing on something that's true on any side of the business. I mean, this is kind of just true in life in general, is that, yeah, when someone's actually excited about something they're doing or something they're pushing, whether they're an artist, whether they're a promoter, whether, you know, anything. Of course, yes, people can tell that. And I think people can tell the opposite. Like you were saying, when it's kind of just being done as whatever, a money grab, or just out of obligation, or because you're chasing a trend, you know, whatever it is. I think people can tell that too. It actually, I had this written down. I was wondering with you guys, having done this for so long, having what I would say is a very strong brand at this point, I'm sure at some point you must have been approached by some bigger entity, either trying to acquire the whole thing or to try to link up with you guys. Has there ever been, you don't have to go into specifics if you don't want to, but has there ever been a time when you just got offered like a dump truck of money to give up some control? And like, what are those decisions like?
No, I think that, you know what, the main thing has really been about people who want to invest in cool things. So we've had those types of conversations. And have had a bunch of them, not lately, honestly, because we've really been focused on the business of what we do and tightening that up and getting better as business people. And like, that's actually a passion of Henry and I's as well as entrepreneurs. Like, it's not just like the party and the music and the curation. Like, we love a P&L. You know what I mean? We love a month where we exceed our projections. You know, we really do treat this very seriously when it comes to that. So those conversations end up always being the same. Like, well, what are we going to do with the money? Can we just do it without that person? We're just going to keep doing it without that person. Like, that's kind of like what it is. Obviously, if it's something crazy and something else, then we're always open. But it's not as much as you think, where it's like, you know, people banging down the doors. But we've had those convos, and it's like, it's always the same with anything. I mean, anybody listening to this, whether you're in music or any business, when you take on money, you take on partners. You then take on the emotions of those partners. They feel that they have some sort of control of you because they kind of do, because they own a piece of your company. You know what I mean? It's Shark Tank stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's stuff we actually do take very seriously. And it's obviously, if something cool comes along that makes sense, we're down. But so far, it's just been kind of like cool conversations, flattering conversations. But so far, we're a small business. You know what I mean? We're a small business. We have about 7 employees. Everybody's scrappy, you know, works their asses off and takes pride in what we do. And by the way, I want to go back to your energy question, because you were saying, you know, how do you still have the energy? Like, not to be dramatic, but like, this is actually life and death for us. Like, it is. It's like, Henry and I cannot go work for somebody else or be in an ecosystem that is not run by us or controlled by us. I have a family to feed. Like literally, these parties pay for our existence, and also the people who work with us, and also support the artists that we support. So it's actually like that much, and why we have the energy, because it's, if we don't do this, like we will die.
Yeah.
So it's just, we have to do it.
100%. And of course, I understand and very much relate to that. I will say though, framing it that way makes it sound fairly stressful at the same time. Like,
No,
here's the question: is like, what's the ratio of like fun to stress in your life? You know,
I actually feel like I'm very excited to do what I do every single day, and I you know what? To be thorough towards your question is like, yeah, there's things we have to like go out of our comfort zone, and a lot of times, but in order, as a means to an end, it's like, okay, I have to, for example, this kid that may owe us money for some bar deal, or that, I think that just comes with the territory. And I think that's our daily attitude about it, is like, okay, this is an annoying guy. How much do we care?
Yeah, you gotta break some legs every once in a while.
Yeah, break a couple legs sometimes, you know? No, but part of that, our attitude towards it is always shaped in the sense that like, okay, well, we wanted to achieve this kind of event. Of course, you're going to have to do, what are the typical things that aren't super exciting? Like, go on Excel and get organized with your math. Okay, whatever. So let's just go do it. Takes 5 minutes, takes an hour, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, you'll have a great party where we got to express our ideas. Our team members got to express their ideas. And I think that by far is a more energizing element than kind of, gritting my teeth through the Excel exercise.
Yeah.
And to see the smiles on everyone's faces to, help artists shape their careers, I think by far outweighs, the mundane tasks.
Yeah. Well, can we quickly summarize everything you guys are doing right now? Because you have Space Yacht, the events, you have Tune Reactor and the label where you're putting out music. You're still doing merch, right?
Yeah. So the merch is a full kind of like streetwear apparel situation. And we actually have a lot of people
bigger, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We have people who are buying our stuff online who've never been to a party or listened to any of the music we put out. They just dig the stuff. So that really has turned into like, its own business unit. We sell the stuff at shows, but there's a lot online and a lot of online drops that are online only. So that's definitely a big focus for us.
And you're doing artist management as well, a little bit?
Dabbling.
Yeah, we have our a couple of like kind of passion projects there, but at the end of the day, like, me and Rami kind of look at it as like a lot of this is really shaped around the nightlife / day life / recreation. That energy of going out, going to a show, experiencing live music, experiencing music in general. So it started with the events. Then it became the Tune Reactor plus music label combo that were basically a pipeline into the events.
Yeah.
Right. And then the streetwear and maybe home goods section where, you continue to experience the brand and attitude after the event. You go home with something really cool. But like Rami said, these kind of adjacent projects, if you will, have really started taking on lives of their own and beautiful storylines of their own.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. Are you guys still doing weed? We talked about you were just getting into weed like 2019.
Yeah, we have some projects in the works, but we're in the mix. Let's just put it that way. But
sure.
Nothing on sale right now. But some of that, we actually are collaborating with a new headphone company based out of Taiwan, run by a friend of ours called San. And so that's actually a partnership that's really cool. We're going to be doing an event with them, a series of events, but also be putting out our own kind of Bluetooth headphone, like kind of a headset situation.
Nice.
So that's a project we're stoked on because that's some new stuff that we feel like is pretty unique to what we're doing. And I don't know, that's one of those things. It's funny. It's like Henry talked about like the things like we're energetic on. And I think that one of the things we found out last year was that like the events business is kind of the heart and soul, and it's the heartbeat of what we do. And this year we were kind of like, we have a lot of projects going on, but instead of like taking on 5 new things, why don't we like put all of our energy into the things that are kind of the core? Because to your point, we're constantly trying to find new people to come to our parties and new people to listen to shows. Like you can't just have the same party and talk to the same people. To your point, they age out or they get married or whatever it is, right? So I think that's for 2023, like our focus is really honed laser focus on the live events, on our Tuesday residency, and then on the music for the label and that interaction on Twitch and that interaction at the shows. And all the other stuff, yeah, there's going to be some other like projects going on, but that's just like, we feel if we can nail those things, which we're already been doing for 8 years, but really do that, like we can keep growing like in a real way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, I think you guys have always had, I think, a very good and healthy focus and like sort of approached growth in a smart way that way. It does make me wonder. I mean, it seemed like pretty quickly when the pandemic hit, you guys were able to pivot to stuff like Tune Reactor and Twitch and all of that. How crazy of a moment was that for you guys whose business was and still is founded on live events? Because I talked to plenty of, DJs and producers freaking out around that time, but I didn't actually talk to a lot of people who were really throwing the events, and it must have been even worse for you guys.
I don't know. I liked wearing sweatpants all the time. That was cool. No, look, I think like Henry and I, like, I don't know, we refused to give up like a lot of people. You hear those stories and it's like we just found new ways to express this brand and Twitch was kind of it. It's like it's kind of all we could do.
Yeah.
And then the clothing too, to your point, like the clothing is its own thing because of that period where people were, on their couch and we were putting out shirts that said "We are so fucked," and I think the sentiment of that saying just kind of took off. You know what I mean? So that when one kind of door closed, which was the events, kind of opened the funnel to these new businesses that we probably wouldn't have had in the same way had we just kept going on in the events. So
sure.
The little bit of kind of silver lining there, but definitely scary.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, I guess that's my question is like, how. I don't know. You guys, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you guys are just so laser focused on what you're doing and enjoy the process of like solving those puzzles and figuring out the next steps, that maybe just the fact that you had to do that, times a million was sort of, that just became the automatic focus. But I just in general, like you guys do a lot of stuff. You always have a lot going on. There's always a lot of balls in the air. Like, is it just the pure joy of figuring out the next puzzle, the next step? Like, what is it that keeps you like happy and healthy and engaged? Like, is it just going harder, or are there things you do outside of this that like keep you, in the mindset to be able to do what you do?
The Space Yacht is kind of our lives. It's our career. It's our passion project. It's our work. And I mean, if there's an allusion towards like, are there things we do like spend time with family or loved ones or kind of maintenance exercises that we do? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, you got like a hobby? What do you do?
Well,
Henry's an epic chef. Henry's a really good cook, like high level.
I love cooking. I love snowboarding. Love being with my loved ones for sure. Recently I picked up a gardening hobby on the side. So I'm sprouting. Actually, I got chili pepper seeds right here sprouting on my desk.
Dude, we got to do Henry's chili peppers. We got to put that out, buy it at the merch table.
I absolutely have to.
That'd be good, man. You could get like a little farmer's market going at the events. That actually takes me back. I know you guys are old school ravers to a certain extent too. Like it used to be, you would go to kind of the underground events and there would just be, folding tables set up with like, it's almost like a flea market vibe in the back of the room. You know what I mean? I kind of miss that.
Totally. Where they do that they do a good job is at Academy on the patio. They'll like for day trip, they have like a bunch of vendors now that I don't know if that was always that way, but it's really cool.
Oh, I like
a lot of local people. But I like the idea of having like, perishable goods at our table, like, like fresh arugula and, and chili peppers.
I love that too. Cause then just at the end of the night, it's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go to the grocery store. Great.
Or I could eat this bacon wrap hot dog on Hollywood Boulevard, or I could have a fresh head of cabbage that I just And this 40-year-old aged balsamic that I bought there as well.
It's what every raver wants at 3 a.m. is a fresh head of cabbage.
It's so true. Have you ever cooked cabbage? It smells really bad.
Cabbage it's one of those, I don't know. It's not my favorite. Like, I know it's needed in certain dishes. I do a lot of cooking too, but I'm never excited to cook with cabbage.
Yeah.
Oh man.
What do you cook, Henry? What's the specialty?
My recent is a good chuck roast in the Instant Pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
With a bit of a birria lean to it. So I'll put the ancho chilies, or I forget the exact names of the chili mix, but
nice.
It's been great.
The SoCal influence.
Instant Pot everything these days.
Yeah, the Instant Pot is good. And you're from SoCal originally, is that right, Henry?
Yeah. I moved here from Portland when I was 2, but
okay.
I pretty much grew up here.
Got you.
So,
because we talked a lot last time about, when you guys met. We started like at the college years and onwards. But I did want to ask both you guys just a little bit about childhood, because I was curious. We've been delving into sort of the mindset and what keeps you guys going, but I think so much of that for anybody stems from like early years. So maybe because we're talking about it for you, Henry, like what did your folks do? And was there music around the house when you were growing up? Like where did it start at an early age for you?
So yeah, I did come from a very my dad was a violinist, or kind of not professionally, but he was playing old school, not old school.
Old school violin.
A lot of Tchaikovsky in the house on vinyl records. I had an aunt who had her husband at the time was obsessed with the Beatles. So I have these old tapes. I have a stamped white album somewhere in the house. But a lot of musical influence either from my dad or my aunt in the household. But it didn't make me want to be a musician in life. It just kind of made me speak the language a lot more. But my dad sold stuff at flea markets as part of his job. So I was always out there. I was at flea markets all the time, seeing him, kind of chat people up and see him be a salesperson, a business person, being a nice person to people. So that I'd say that had a lot to do to influence me, of course. And my mom was a waitress. So on the flip side, when my dad didn't have me, I would be the one kid sitting in like the corner booth, you know what I mean? Just kind of like, coloring shit. So I got to experience kind of hospitality and the food service world there, and just, it's kind of immigrant shit, you know what I mean?
Were they like first generation?
They both moved here from China.
Okay.
So I don't know if that means the immigrant or first generation.
Yeah, I think then, they're the first generation who moved, right? That's what
exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting too. I mean, was there the stereotype of kids of first generation immigrants is that there's a lot of pressure to succeed? Did you have that?
Sure. Yes and no. I mean, there's that kind of that classical trope of like the Asian tiger mom. I mean, there was a little element of that, but I kind of got pretty quickly that, the intention, it came from good intentions.
Sure.
So it, of course, when I was like, 12, it didn't mean like, oh yeah, please lord over me. It wasn't like that whatsoever. But, later on in life, it was like, okay, well, the tension comes from like, okay, you kind of need to survive somehow. So you might as well figure out your shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that caused me to harbor resentment long term. It was a lot of like, oh, mom's being annoying, I got to go to sleep. So, all right, fine.
Yeah.
I go to sleep.
Well, and I have to imagine they probably in some ways could understand what you ended up doing as a result of their background a little bit, right? Especially from your dad's side of like that sort of host kind of mentality. Do you think?
I think other people you've interviewed on this podcast, I'm actually curious what their versions of this were. But like, imagine being like, "Hey, mom, I'm going to become a DJ named Nostalgics."
Oh, I mean, that never goes well.
Or like, I'm going to become DJ Nightmare. Like, so, I'm sure some parents are more supportive than others, but
right.
I had to have a heart to heart with my parents, saying like, "Hey, I'm going to do this kind of nightclub night thing," and my parents, of course, in the beginning, there was like a, "You're going to do what?"
Yeah.
Like you're going to do that? So I kind of phrase it to them like, give me 3 years. It doesn't work out in 3 years. I'm going to go, I got my backup. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Like I'm skilled at other things in life. And I don't approach this with fear, maybe some nervousness for sure, but definitely without fear. And also at the time when we started Space Yacht, like both me and Rami were at different jobs and we were doing pretty okay for ourselves at the time. So and we talked. I will say, to other people listening, and if you're trying to become a DJ or something in entertainment, and you could hang on to another job and still manage your time well enough where you can fuel your passions, consider that. Because the alternative would be go all or nothing for something that could go any way.
Dude, I preach about that kind of thing all the time. Like, hold on to the day job as long as you are able to do so. Only when the music starts like being too much to handle with the day job, think about it. Other than that, man, stick with the day job as long as you can. You'll be glad you did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think either of us came in, I think every year we become business leaders better. Right? People who learn more business skills. Like when we first started, it's not like we were very P&L based or, the financials based, but now it's the intersection of many things. It's, sustainability, the attitudes we portray, and also, of course, our tastes.
Of course. Yeah. This is totally random, but did you ever talk to Kurt Flosterdamus about the flea market thing? Because that's what his dad did as well. And I think still does.
No, I had no idea. I got to ask him.
That's like his dad's main gig, and I think kind of has been for most of his life.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit him up.
Yeah. I went to his dad's flea market once. It was awesome out in Michigan.
Is it in LA? Where is it?
Out in Michigan, like kind of rural Michigan.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, really absolutely. Cool. But wait, Rami, where are you from originally?
I'm born and raised in New York City and moved to LA after like a year after college. I did an internship in New York before I moved out here where I was working at a PR company. So that was actually super informative for me in terms of marketing and that was kind of my first marketing job.
Right.
And then I did a bunch of I was in bands and stuff. I moved out to be in bands, but I was in a bunch of different marketing startups. And that's where I met Henry at the last one. And kind of, we probably talked on the last show, but basically Space Yacht started out of me and Henry like staying late, working late, and then realizing we had similar taste in music and I wanted to start the London Bridge project. And it's kind of how it all came about. So I definitely moved out here to be in bands. That was like my whole thing. I didn't move out to become a DJ. I moved to LA to like be in an indie band. And
well, of course. And I mean, growing up, did you grow up in the city proper? Like what part of NYC?
Yeah, I grew up in Manhattan on the Upper West Side. And
I mean, around that time, it's all indie band. Like New York was the epicenter of the indie band thing.
No, and when I was working at this, it was the PR company is called Girly Action, and they did PR for the White Stripes on the album that broke them. They also did like the Wilco Yankee Hotel Foxtrot record. They did a bunch of like seminal indie records.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, this was before like SoundCloud and everything. So I was literally taking the promo CDs and like this press release and stuffing envelopes and sending them out. But they also happen to have people like Richie Houghton. And they were actually like they represented like a lot of the DJs in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s. So like, it's crazy. I was just like, I internship one summer for them and then for about 6 months before I moved to LA. And just like the knowledge I got out of that. I mean, that's another thing that is good for listeners where it's like taking those types of jobs, even though you're trying to be an artist, getting those kind of jobs where you're just like an intern at a PR company can be hugely valuable if you enable it to be and are open-minded about like just soaking in kind of the things. And that's kind of what I did. So,
man, what else would they do? Just out of curiosity, like for a big campaign, if they're doing White Stripes, that kind of thing, you're stuffing envelopes. What else are you doing?
Yeah. So this stuffing envelopes, doing message boards. So this is early message boards. This is like around 2002 when I was working there. So a lot of like message boards, like MySpace stuff at the time. They were setting up like in stores, like whether it was signings or like they represented Elliott Smith. So like they were doing a lot of kind of, he could show up with a guitar type things, radio. The Girly Action was like a really dope company. They worked with like huge, I think Pavement was one of the bands, huge bands.
Yeah.
So, I just learned the ropes from that. And then from my marketing jobs, when I got to LA, that's kind of like how I learned to kind of become fluent in that. And that's a big part of Space Yacht. I mean, like Henry designs like pretty much 90%, almost 100% of like all the flyers and all the art that comes out of us. It's like Henry's vision, and we match that vision with kind of our marketing prowess, because both of us had kind of come from marketing backgrounds. So that's kind of the intersection between it, because we're both kind of come from music. But the Space Yacht really is the mixture of all of that. It's like we always say on our morning calls, like we're kind of also a marketing company. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, right, we're curators, we're a record label, we're this and that. But like if we don't market it, nobody knows about it. So for every business unit that we have, there is a marketing angle and a narrative that we want to be expressing. The backstories, Henry's backstory and kind of my backstory, like that is actually where all of this kind of fused itself together to become like the company that we are now.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. Well, did you also have the teenage experience of running around New York City, you know, going to shows, going to clubs too? Because I think that's got to be 100%. So formative.
No, like totally. Like when I was like, when I went to my first show when I was like in 8th grade, like first show meaning going without my parents. Right. It wasn't like a Michael Jackson show or like go. I went to see Fugazi at the Roseland.
Oh wow.
And when I was like 12 with my buddy Matt Rosenberg and Dan Silk, who's my buddy who lives out here. And then every weekend we would go to every show. I saw Foo Fighters on their first tour. I saw just like countless epic, insane shows at these venues that don't exist anymore. So I was very lucky to have parents who were super cool with it. I wouldn't do necessarily that many weekday shows, although I did see Rancid at the Limelight on a Wednesday, which was a huge deal for me. But that was a big thing. I was a total show rat. And then like in 95, I was going to like a summer thing at Boston University for like communications and film. And I remember taking the bus to go to the like third Lollapalooza. It had like Hole and Cypress Hill and Sonic Youth and the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, who were like my favorite band at the time. So I was definitely deep in rock, punk rock, indie, all that. That was everything. And then my first exposure, honestly, to electronic music was working at Girly Action, that PR company. And also I had a roommate who was super into drum and bass, like one of my freshman year roommates. So that was when I first started getting the bug of the kind of dance music, electronic stuff. And then I went to Italy for a semester abroad and just fell in love with house music. And that was kind of, I came back and bought Technique 1200s and started going to the record shop every weekend and kind of got into that. Before I moved to LA.
Yeah,
and then
that's fun, man. I wonder if any of that plays into sort of this community thing we talk about with Space Yacht too, because here, you know, those early shows running around with your friends, you know, as young as 12, 13 years old, like that just makes me think about the community aspect, the local aspect of it all. I have to imagine that imprinted something on you that maybe even in intangible ways you bring to what you're doing now.
Well, yes, I hadn't thought about that, but I've been in clubs since I'm 12. I think that's the answer. It's like it's true, and I've never thought about it that way. But it's one thing is true is that yes, every weekend I was in a club and like through college. But then also my favorite music video when I was a kid was Belle Biv DeVoe's "Poison," where they go to the club and they're all dancing in the club, and I always saw that and was like, that's really cool. Like I want to go to that club. I know like. Never trust a big butt and a smile, but that looks cool. And so I think it's like, yeah, it is the combo, but I never thought about that. It's really true. If I think about like, yeah, I've had day jobs and stuff and worked, you know, like regular jobs, but I've always been in the club the whole time.
Yeah, it's been the constant. And what did your folks do? What allowed them to be cool with you going to all this stuff so young?
Well, I was one of 5 kids, so like I was number 4 or 5. So by that time, my mom was like, "Do whatever."
Oh yeah,
she's done like bossing anybody around. She's just trying to get through it. My dad's a classical musician, so music was just always a huge focal point. And just like Henry, the Beatles was a big thing in our house. And then my brother is 10 years older than me, so that's where I would say like pop music and hip hop and all the things I started listening to was because he'd always have these records and be playing this stuff. So I felt as though I had a good beat on like what was cool kind of early, and became just like a super fan. Like once I got my first Walkman, I remember I got my first Walkman and like my first tape and immediately became addicted to like buying tapes, buying CDs kind of in a collecting type fashion. And yeah, that's just like, honestly, music has consumed my life though.
Yeah.
Since the jump. And I played instruments. I was in bands. I played drums. I played guitar, you know, did all that. So it's really been a through line in my life
forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure too, the collector aspect, I'm sure is something you can sort of infuse into what you're doing now, the way that you guys are, making merch that people want to buy that isn't even connected to the music necessarily.
Yep.
All that sort of stuff. I think there's a bunch of through lines.
You mean like the limited edition Hydro Flask by Space Yacht? But like it's all like this. We do like 100 of these. So they become important to people because there's only 100 of them. And then we'll do a different colorway, the fire hydrant red. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's, look, I mean, and you can see on my wall, I've got skateboards. I collect shit. Like I'm one of those people. And so I think that's definitely in the products that we make. We want it to be, everything's rare. Everything's 100 or less. And if you missed it, you missed it. And hopefully we'll keep making dope shit.
Well, and this is something I talked to Madian about, and I still think about this little part of our conversation a lot, is that he was talking about how much of a fan of other things he still is. So he's saying like, I'll stock the drop for some band's merchandise, and be there at noon when it opens, that kind of thing. And he was saying like, not only is that fun for him, but that it's important for anyone who's doing what we do. And I would apply the same to you guys as far as you have to sort of stay in that culture. Maybe it's even the same thing as like showing up to all the Space Yacht events, all that kind of thing. Like you kind of have to, in a weird way, play both roles. You have to be the fan and the thing people are a fan of for it to work.
I totally agree.
That's really well said. That's really true, because then if the worst thing that Henry and I could do is lose touch with the people who goes to the show, or lose touch in any way to the brand. You know what I mean? So that's totally
well. And I think you totally being true. A fan of something else too helps keep in the back of your mind sort of like this is what this feels like. Right. This is why I'm excited about something else. So maybe that's,
Well, what the easy part of that is the music. It's like once we get to like we book it and we market it and we're like all intense. But once we're at the show, Henry and I have a saying when something's going well, we look at each other, we're like, cool party, bro. Like that's when we know, we're like, the work is done. Now we can enjoy. And I agree with that. And I think what it is really is the music. It's like, I'm like, or Diego, who's doing booking with us now. It's like, he's like, I've been wanting to book this person for so long. And then we'll be on the side of the stage watching that person kill it. And we'll look at each other being like that. I think that's the kid in us that's still in everybody who works for our company. Like we all have that feeling. And I think that's definitely part of what keeps it going, is that like, we're all music fans first.
Yeah. You gotta keep that, man. I mean, it can be hard to keep that when everything's going crazy and you're doing a million things and you got to answer emails and all that. But I think you have to kind of, for any project to have like a long-term success. It makes me want to ask you guys too, like, I think another part of why I like what you guys do as Space Yacht is because the interplay between you two as people, like even just watching the Twitch streams or any of that, like you can tell you guys are having fun with each other. There's like, there's a genuine friendship that I think comes through when you see you guys together. And I wanted to talk, as much as you guys want to get into this, like, how has your relationship between the two of you guys evolved over time? Because I think when you're doing everything together, your friends, your business partners, you're partying together, all of that kind of stuff, those relationships famously can fall apart. They can go up, they can go down. For you guys, like, how has that evolved over time? Because it's fun to see you guys together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe we're lucky, but I haven't really felt that. I know what you're saying, like, famous duos or whatever fell apart, or even just people who end up, working together great. But then over time, like, it's not still the same, like, just excited, fun kid energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about this for the first time, so I'm kind of like staring into space, trying to.
Well, I mean, I think it makes me smile because you know what it's like. We're brothers. You know what I mean? And
totally,
I think we've been through so much together, and we've made mistakes, and we've apologized to one another for mistakes we've made, and we own it when we know we fucked up, and all. And I think that the kind of communication that we have with one another is so open that there's really never a chance to harbor resentment or be passive aggressive, because one of us will call each other out saying, bro, tell me what's up. And by the way, it doesn't happen very often, but I'm saying, like, when it has happened in the past, you grow stronger And I think on top of that, there's a mutual respect. You know, I'm a little bit older than Henry, and I've seen what I've seen. He's seen what he's seen. And I think there's a constant learning from one another that I think continues to kind of enrich our relationship. And then the last part is that the team that we have right now is so special. Like the people who work with us, like top to bottom, everybody who's working on the team right now that's part of what's energizing Henry and I, because they're not only brilliant at what they're doing and also learning alongside us, but they're just the best people. Like I see them on the Tuesdays or whatever party, and I can't wait to see like my friends, you know? Yeah. And I think they honestly help Henry and I keep our heads on straight, like straight up. So
yep.
I agree. I hadn't kind of thought about it before, but when I'm thinking about it, it's like, this is on some brotherhood shit. I don't know. I think we keep going.
Yeah, you know? No, it's beautiful, man. Yeah, it's fun to see you guys together because you can really tell you are still having fun. And like we said earlier, I think that comes through in all the projects you're doing, like that sense of fun. And I don't know, there's still like a kid energy to it that I like. And
Thank you.
That I think that's hard to manufacture.
Look at Disney. I mean, we look up to Disney as a company, but also like Walt Disney was the dude who like got Mickey Mouse going, and Mickey Mouse is for kids, and like you know what I mean? It's like yeah. So that's how we feel. It's like this is the lane we're in. We're in nightlife and dance music and youth culture, and I do think that's part of, by the way, that will keep us energized. I mean, my mother is turning 80. She runs a music school and works with like some of the best kids in the world who do violin and whatever. And she's bouncing off the walls. She's got so much energy because it's energizing to her because she is working with the youth and is still tapped into that. And I think that's where we live, right? Because like our sweet spot is like, 21 to 25. And that's where our fan base is, because that's who goes to these clubs and stuff. So we have to continually be tapped into that, even though, we're going to get older. Like I actually have, my friends are always like, you go to the club all the time, and they're like all like tired and like I can, and for me, I'm like, I'll go to the club every night. Like we're good. Like, right, because I've never gotten a chance to like be separate from it and then feel old. I don't. Yeah. I feel like I'm connected to.
Well, that's the paradox. That's like the fun time warping paradox of what we do, right? It's like, I think staying close to dance culture and this, like it keeps you young. And then also it ages you super fast.
Oh, well, depending on what you're doing.
Well, it does both at the same time. That's like the paradox of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say neither of us really feel that classic, like, you reach 25 and you're like, oh, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't? No. Where does that come from? I think it comes from maybe something within yourself or a life habit you had. But for us, it's not unhealthy. If anything, it's a late night and a couple of extra drinks, or maybe a couple of extra dozen drinks. but
also, also like people like Carl Cox, Fatboy Slim, Simon from Defected. You finally are like electronic music is old enough where you have elder statesmen in it, and I look up to those people like Pasquale, Gary Richards. Like these are people who are now have families and are adults, and they're still in the mix. And so when we talk about like the age and stuff, it's like, all right, well, fuck it. Like those guys are still going, and they're not going to stop either. You know what I mean? You think Carl Cox is ever going to stop? No, he's not. So I actually love that, because it's not even ever thought of being like, well, when am I going to get too old to do this? It's like, no, like this is what we do. You know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, I feel exactly the same way as you guys. I mean, it's not even a question to me. I understand why some people drop out. Everyone's life is different. And for some people, it's like, maybe this wasn't their life's calling. Maybe this was just maybe this was just a chapter in the book of their life, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's totally fine. But for me, and I think for you guys and really anyone who sticks around, it's like I think we can all recognize those people because we are those people. You know what I mean?
That's true.
There is to your point, there is a flip side where, me and Diego have these kind of like brotherly moments of like, while we are, keeping ourselves pretty on solid ground, we're also kind of like, you also kind of have to be pretty crazy to do what we do.
It's a weird one. And that's the other thing too, is like the people who are in it for the long haul are always my favorite people, because then it doesn't even matter if you're up or you're down. Everything we do goes in waves, and you stick around long enough, and it really just becomes about the relationships and the people, and the ones who stick it out. The community at the end of the day is
Totally.
like, I've been thinking a lot about like what do I actually remember of my come up in my early years, and it's never the big accomplishment necessarily. It's always the thing like next to that. It's always
Right.
like the people I was with when that happened, or
Right.
the conversation I had at the side of the stage after XYZ, that kind of thing. And yeah, man, I don't know. I think that's to bring it back to what you guys do again. That's kind of always something I've associated you guys with. It's like, it is about the thing, but it's also about the thing next to the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's about the conversations on the smoking patio.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, as we're kind of wrapping it up, like on that note, you guys are doing a million things. We talked about a lot of it. Is there anything you have your eye on as far as projects that maybe haven't happened quite yet, or things you would like to get into in a hypothetical ideal case?
I don't know.
New upcoming projects?
Well, yeah, it could be something you're working on, or it could even just be, some pie in the sky thing of like, that would be fun. I don't know if we'll ever do it, but I think we could have fun with that.
I think for us, like we have, I think the record label is like, for me, like one of the most exciting parts of what's going on, because we have some records that we really feel could break through, and we're really challenging ourselves to do that. I mean, we've had some good success with the label, but we got this record by this new artist named Nate Katz. He's a brand new artist. Nobody's heard him, but we have a song that everybody agrees is just fucking, it's got it.
Mental.
It's mental. So and I played it actually at Space Yacht on Tuesday, and I got on the mic being like, this is brand new. Like, let me know what you think. And the whole fucking place went insane. So the challenge to us is like, okay, like we know we have it. Everybody who hears it believes it. Then how do we make it huge? Like,
right.
It's like, how do we blow? So I think that's a big, just in terms of our energy on the labels, like now that we know we have a hit, let's really try to push ourselves. So I think that's one of the things. Also, just like the Tech My House 5 compilation just came out, volume 5. And that we're just really proud of that. That's like 11 of the 17 tracks were sourced from the Tune Reactor Twitch show. So we found them on the air and signed them. And it's mostly new artists. So I think those projects are really exciting. We've got, I don't know if I can announce, but we have an album and a compilation co-curated with a pretty huge dubstep artist. So on that side of our world, on the bass side of our world,
nice.
We have kind of it's going to be our first dubstep album that we release, and we're doing a tour with this artist. So I can't leak it yet, but that's another exciting project in terms of trying to merge the record label stuff with an existing artist with the touring.
Right. Well,
so
that's not to cut you off, but I think that's a cool way to link what you guys do in a new way, right? You were talking about how oftentimes you're sort of the debut of artists. You start with artists. But then that's a cool thought that, once maybe they get bigger, that kind of thing, you can still sort of do something with them, have them curate something for the label, continue that relationship in a meaningful way. That's a cool idea.
Absolutely. And this person's like been a Space Yacht regular, and we've kind of seen him come up. And so it's very kind of natural to do. And we did that with Omnom last year. He co-curated the Tech My House Volume 4, and we did some dates with him. So it's just stuff that kind of further closes the gap between the label and the live shows and all that stuff. So really, really excited about those projects. Honestly, I think those are the things that we're really focused on for the beginning of the year. And then just in general, I think we've never had more events. We're starting to have events where we have like a show in San Francisco and a show in Seattle on the same night. So I think all of our energy is going into maximizing just the amount of stuff we can do on the live event side. And the Tuesdays at Sound, we're back live open. That's like 42 shows in a year just at Sound on Tuesdays. So, for those that are listening that have never been and you want your first taste of Space Yacht, that would be the place to go in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. It's called Sound Nightclub, and we do every Tuesday there. And that is the heartbeat of our brand. That's where it all started. These are things that we've been doing, but when we talk about energy and excitement and like the future, it's more of that. You know what I mean? It's just kind of leveling up as much as we can.
Let me ask you this just very quickly. When you guys do events in other places in the country, Vegas, Seattle, whatever it is, how do you keep that, not to use an overused phrase, but like, how do you keep that same energy, that same vibe of what a Space Yacht event should feel like? You know what that is. How do you translate it to different, cities, scenes, venues, all of that?
It's funny because it's both. Like we go into it head first knowing, you realize the physical people are just completely different people, and you respect that everyone is different, and in a way cities have different tastes too, and we go into it knowing that. But once you show up, and here's the yes part, is like, yeah, you're right, there is this kind of like positive chaos that goes about all our shows, and I think maybe that comes from the persona that we portray online, and the way we speak about things, and I think the way we've interfaced less as a kind of corporate entity or a company about this culture is we just embrace at the end of the day, we're just a group of people that love the music that we love. And if you kind of share that value, you might have a great time at the show. So while like the cast and crew and the tastes are always a bit slightly different, that energy seems to show through. And I think I'm honestly really happy to see that. And it's, so weird. It's such like a yes and no kind of observation.
Yeah.
And also like, it's like it's very simple what we bring to these other places. You know what I mean? It's not like Elro where we're bringing a cast and a crew and like all this fantastical stuff. We show up with like some visuals, some merch and pizza at like 1 a.m. But we show up, and I think people before they go, they dive into our socials and see all the content and get to know us a little bit. So I think like it's more of like they're ready for that energy because they kind of almost like saw the trailer to the movie and now they're ready to go see Top Gun and they're in that mode. You know what I'm saying? And then they meet me and Henry and they say they met us through Tune Reactor or they saw us on social or whatever. And it's just the positive energy that we're portraying. It's very simple. It's like, it's like you were talking about like investors before and they'd be like, well, what's your IP? Like whatever. It's like, yeah, we have like logos and shirts and all that stuff, but like the IP is the energy and the vibe. And it's like, that's just because we show up and the people that we book. And, it also goes with the people we book in terms of like, most of the people we book are really nice people. It's like, it's not a prerequisite, but it's like, we don't book jerks. Everybody's trying to have fun and have a good time. So that translates as well. So,
I mean, who's if what you do is Top Gun, who's the Tom Cruise of Space Yacht?
Oh, Henry for sure. I'm Goose. I'm Goose from the first movie.
Oh my God.
I know,
okay, that's good. That was a
movie,
quick answer. You already knew. I think that's a good sign.
And Diego's Iceman. Diego's the Iceman. Anyway, sorry, I'm referencing. I love the new one too. By the way, I'm definitely on the new one train. But all my references are from the first movie.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
the Kelly McGillis era.
Right, exactly. Well, man, is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else you guys are thinking about? You want to get out there? Anything else on your mind?
Just, we do Tune Reactor every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Pacific on Twitch. So tune in. We are relentless. We are pretty much always on there unless it's like a long weekend or something. And then every Tuesday at Sound Nightclub in Los Angeles. And if you live in San Francisco, Seattle, or Las Vegas, we are in all those cities regularly. And then you can check out all our music on Spotify, Beatport, Apple Music. Just search Space Yacht and we'll be there.
Beautiful.
And that's the vibe.
Well, man, it's great talking to you guys, man. I'll let you go. But thanks for doing this, man.
Awesome.
Good to
Thank
catch
you so
up.
much for the time. We appreciate it.
100%, man. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
All right, brother. Take care.
Take care.
Peace.
Bye.